Eyo, Greg Branos for the Coach Speak Index. What is good, everybody? Can you feel it? Can you feel how close we are to NFL training camp? Woo! My entire body is vibrating with anticipation. Speaking of anticipation, I have a few really cool pieces of news. A couple of them I can't share with you quite yet, very soon, but the other I can. The week of July 22nd, I will be launching a live stream on the Coach Speak Index's YouTube channel where I perform karaoke while I draft some underdog Best Ball Mania teams. It's going to be a really, really fun time. I'll announce the exact date and time next week, and I'll probably do a handful of Best Ball Karaoke live streams between mid-July and mid-August. All right, today we are covering the NFC South, and we will begin with the Atlanta Falcons. Brand new coaching staff here. Raheem Morris gets a second/third crack at being a head coach. He finished with a 17-31 record in Tampa Bay from 2009 to 2011. Then he was named interim head coach of the Falcons in 2020 after Atlanta fired then head coach Dan Quinn. Zach Robinson is the new offensive coordinator for the Falcons. Previous to this, he spent all 5 years of his assistant coaching career under Sean McVay in Los Angeles, where he served as the pass game coordinator and QB coach for the past 2 seasons. So we may see some very familiar McVay philosophies and tendencies. And one of those may be a concentration of opportunities for the team's star players instead of spreading the ball around to 20 different guys like our common enemy Arthur Smith did. It's going to be Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, with some runoff opportunities for the ancillary options like Darnell Mooney. We'll talk about quarterback here. The Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract with $100 million guaranteed. And I don't think it's any coincidence that we saw a spike in the stock price of Kohl's Corporation right after this signing. Cousins tore his ACL in week 8 of last season, so it's possible we see some limitations on his deeper passing, and we may see him get off to a slower start. He's in a new system, on a new team. We don't know how much he'll be able to do in training camp to establish an on-field rapport with his teammates. It could make sense for Atlanta to lean more heavily on the run for the first few weeks of the season. I want to touch on the Falcons' decision to draft Michael Penix Jr. real quick. Lost in all the hullabaloo of Atlanta selecting him at number 8 is that this is terrific for the Falcons' offense in fantasy. If Kirk Cousins gets injured again, the drop-off to QB2 will likely lower the ceiling for guys like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, but it won't be as bad as it could have been without Penix there. Also, this Atlanta defense really could have used some more blue-chip players, so the fact that they didn't grab one high up in the draft leaves them in worse shape on that side of the ball, which could lead to higher scoring games, which is better for fantasy. Kirk O'Chains is my QB 17. That is one spot ahead of consensus. My QB 17 to around QB 24 rankings are so tightly clumped together that I probably won't be taking much of the guys at the higher end of that tier when I can get QBs like Geno Smith, Will Levis, and Baker Mayfield rounds and rounds later. Running back. I'm going to play you this clip from February 14th. Zach Robinson talking about Bijan Robinson.
Only been 2 days on the job. When you see a guy like Bijan at your disposal, does it kind of get you excited tonight just drawing a place for him and what he can bring to this offense?
Yeah, absolutely. He's, I saw Bijan play. We had a bye week in 2022 when I was with the Rams. Went back to Oklahoma State where I went to school, and they were playing Texas. Bijan had about 180 yards of total offense. Seemed like every time he touched the football, something good was going to happen. And so that was my first exposure to him. I watched Big 12 football, all throughout, but seeing him play in person up close, I was like, this guy's unbelievable. And then you study him throughout the draft. You realize what a special player he is. With the ball in his hands, there's so many things he can do. There's nothing he can't do, and that's what gets you excited. And then just getting to talk to him the other day, what a great guy. These guys have done a great job of just drafting the right type of people, the offensive line, the skill guys. You look across the board, and we just have a bunch of great guys that love football. They want to get better, and just hearing the eagerness, just talking to him the other day, I'm excited to get to work. I got goosebumps thinking about it because knowing that we still got a couple months, to wait, but certainly excited to work with a guy like Bijan.
He gets goosebumps when he thinks about working with Bijan Robinson. He's R.L. Steining over here. All right, this next clip is from June 11th. This is Raheem Morris on his vision for Bijan Robinson.
Last year in his rookie season, Bijan lined up all over the field, line up wide, and he has said that he expects to be more of a running back who does other things this year, and I think Zach has concurred with that. How, when you have a guy who can be that dynamic and do that many things, how difficult a decision is it to maybe more fine-tune his role this year?
In the simplest form as you can possibly make it is get the ball to Bijan as much as you can in as many ideal situations that you possibly can. For him, he's so talented, you don't want to limit the things that he can do, but you also don't want to water it down so much that he's not doing anything that he can do great, right? When you get the ball in his hand, he makes people miss. He gets extra yards. He's able to fight for extra yards. He breaks tackles. He's fast. He's explosive. He's strong. He can do so many things. You can get overwhelmed sometime, maybe as a play caller or even as a designer. But for him, I really think he enjoys the whole process. I think he compared himself to that Christian McCaffrey role. And if we can get anywhere near the great player that Christian McCaffrey is, I think we'll all be pretty excited.
Did that make you nervous at all to hear him say that?
No, I'm never going to take away a guy's confidence. It's something about that youthful arrogance, man, that just excites me. So, I absolutely love that.
Get the ball to Bijan as much as you can in as many ideal situations as you possibly can. Raheem Morris has a 50% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak. That is a small sample size. We will see if he is telling the truth on Bijan. Here is Raheem Morris on his plans for the offense in general.
When trying to formulate plans for those three guys, those 3 first-round picks,
Yes.
who are you most excited about building a plan for as you guys got started kind of building the foundation of the offense?
It starts with the run. Bijan Robinson's exciting. Let's not kid ourselves, right? It starts with the run and that up front crew and the toughness that they play with and they displayed last year and how they get off the ball. And then you see the talent in Bijan, and you had evaluated those guys from the last couple of years. Even though we didn't have a first-round pick in LA, you still looked at them.
Just out of pure curiosity, I feel like you have to watch a guy like that.
Bijan was coached by Sark, who worked with us in Atlanta, and you know a lot about that. And cheering for Texas was easy to do, and and it starts with the run. Wherever you go, all old school coaches, man, tell you start.
Yeah,
with the
spoken
run,
like a
stop
true
with the run.
defensive football coach. Let's think about the running game, stopping the run first.
It is always that way.
Yeah.
He said it starts with a run about, 6 times there? During OTAs, we saw this a couple clips ago referenced, but Bijan Robinson told a reporter that the Falcons plan to use him in a similar fashion as Christian McCaffrey is deployed by the Niners. And here's what Zach Robinson had to say about that.
Today or the other day talked about how there's been kind of like talk of him being used kind of like a Christian McCaffrey, a different kind of way than we've seen him used in the past. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, him saying that.
Yeah, I think, Bijan's such a talented player. He's going to play running back first and foremost. And then any way we can find creative ways to give him the ball like the Niners do with Christian McCaffrey is exactly right. So continuing to tailor and tweak things and find creative ways to get him the football, not just, in the dot or in the offset gun running the football, but using his receiver skills without overloading him too much. So I think that's always going to be the balance of it is, hey, you're playing running back, but here's some of the specific nuances that we can get you involved in the pass game.
Sounds pretty good. Bijan Robinson is my running back 3. That's one spot behind consensus. I have Breece Hall ranked above him. Both guys are going to be monsters in all formats, especially PPR. I do have some minor concerns with each of them near the goal line. Aaron Rodgers' offenses have always been extremely pass-heavy, close to pay dirt. He and Devontae Adams were unstoppable on plays from the 2-3 yard line. And I believe he will establish that same connection with Garrett Wilson. And then with Bijan, Tyler Algier is a real threat to steal some touchdowns when the Falcons offense gets down to the goal line. I don't agree with the Cordero Patterson, Jonnu Smith stuff that Arthur Smith did on the goal line last season, but I don't fault him for handing it off to Algier down there. On the bright side, Bijan's red zone work can only go up under this new regime, and he's a threat to break off a touchdown from any spot on the field. Like Peter Parker's Uncle Ben said, with increased workload opportunities comes increased opportunities for fantasy points. Tyler Algier is my running back 47. That is 3 spots ahead of the market. He's a good enough running back to see a modicum of value, and then there's some big contingent value if something happens to Bijan. Wide receiver. At Raheem Morris's introductory press conference, he was asked what stood out about the Falcons' offense, and the first name he mentioned was Drake London. He is also quite a fan of Darnell Mooney. Check him out here.
Watching more and you're watching Mooney on tape, what kind of stands out about him?
His separation. When you're talking about Mooney, you're talking about an elite separator. You're talking about a guy with gas. You're talking about a guy that can run. You're talking about a guy that get the ball in his hand and make plays. You're talking about the kid, the character, knowing him from the draft when he came out, on what he was and some of the stuff that he brought to the table when it comes to that. A highly competitive young man. He fired me up with the opportunity to be able to go out and get him. So I could talk about him all day and some of the stuff that you really love about him. But when you see the guy be able to stand up there at the X position and probably be an elite separator for you, win some of the one-on-one matchups, some of them 50-50 downs that he turns the other way for you, really fires me up having the opportunity to do that with him.
Mooney was pretty terrible in 2023. Really good 2021. Okay 2022. He's definitely getting an upgrade in offensive environment from the quarterback to the offensive coordinator to the number of touchdowns the Falcons are likely to score this season. Mooney has played out wide and in the slot. Atlanta's paying him like a full-time starting receiver. I expect him to see his fair share of opportunities as the 4th option behind London, Pitts, and Bijan. I doubt he'll be startable in redraft because he's traditionally been a very boom or bust player. But I am taking shots on him at his 13th round ADP in best ball because I do believe we'll see some spike weeks out of him. Atlanta plays the Raiders, Giants, and Commanders in the fantasy playoffs. That is a delicious schedule. That is all you can eat barbecue chicken right there. Let me get a plate of that Drake London with a side of Malik Neighbors and Terry McLaurin. Good Lord. Drake London is my wide receiver 10. That is even with the market. Darnell Mooney, wide receiver 67 for me. 1 spot ahead of consensus. Rondale Moore, wide receiver 85. 7 spots ahead of the market. And then Casey Washington, wide receiver 105. 30 spots ahead of consensus. Little lottery ticket flyer there. We will talk tight end now. After posting 1,000 yards in his rookie season with the husk of Matt Ryan, Kyle Pitts finally gets a competent quarterback in his 4th NFL season, and he should be healthy this year to boot. No secret injuries or surgeries that the team doesn't have to report because it's the offseason. And best of all, the Falcons coaches have been extremely vocal about wanting to make Kyle Pitts a big part of this offense. Here is Zach Robinson in February talking about how he'll use Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson.
Bijan and maybe even Kyle Pitts, because the last staff used them or tried to use them in so many different ways. Is that something you think when you develop your offensive scheme is possible, or you see it more, I guess, linear, the better term?
Yeah, that's
for a guy like Pitts or a guy like Bijan?
That's a great question. I don't have the exact answer for you right now. Certainly, I think Kyle's a tight end. I think Bijan's a back, and those guys are going to get their touches, how they get their touches. And so that's part of the process we're putting together right now. But I view those guys as, they're versatile, but those guys can play just tight end. Those guys can play just back. We'll have formation versatility to move them all over and certainly try to get the most out of what they do. But those guys are very special players and just excited to get going with them.
And then here's Raheem Morris on Kyle Pitts. This is a good one.
Weapons you have. But Kyle Pitts, his usage has been like the enigmatic. Is there a plan to get Kyle Pitts more involved where we can really see the talent that everyone's been waiting to see?
When you think about Kyle Pitts, you know what he is. Big, friendly, target that can catch the ball and run, make the impossible catches in the red zone. There's going to be a plan to use those guys. There's going to be a plan to get those guys all involved, particularly him. He'll be a focal point of what we want to do. We're not going to sit here and give you any outrageous stat of how many times we're going to give him the ball, but he'll certainly be a part of it. He is well-versed in what he wants to do and how he wants to play. And now he's just getting better and maturing even more since I've been in the building now.
Again, 50% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak for Raheem Morris. That is a small sample size. Got one more clip here. This is Raheem Morris on Kyle Pitts again.
Kyle Pitts has high expectations for himself. You talk about energy and effort. What have you noticed from Kyle just in the way he's working right now?
He's really been fun for me personally to coach, right? I got this old receiver coaching me, and he's got this tight end that's got this receiver type abilities, and it's really been fun to coach him on details of routes and concepts that we got going, and just be helpful in that manner. And I see a young guy that's eager to learn and want more, and his why is really him, his personal vendetta to get back. And I love that about him, because you got to have a little edge, and he's starting to show that a little bit more every day. And the better we can get him ready to go in training camp, I think the team would be better. I think our city would be better. I think everything would be better for it.
I know you've been burned by Kyle Pitts in the past, but I want you to think about how much of that was his fault. Are you really going to bail on him when the stars are finally aligning? Couldn't be me. Kyle Pitts is my tight end 6. That is even with the market. The Carolina Panthers. Dave Canales revitalized Geno Smith's career in Seattle, jump-started Baker Mayfield in Tampa, and now the QB whisperer takes over as the head coach in Carolina, where he will face his biggest challenge yet which is to have Bryce Young playing like he's actually 5'10". The Panthers did not set Young up for success in his rookie season. The offensive line was abysmal, and the receiving core was one of the worst we've seen in NFL history. Asking Bryce Young to move the football with that supporting cast was like asking a newborn kitten to build a high-speed railroad, or asking David Tepper to not be an entitled jerk. Impossible. This offseason, the Panthers upgraded their O-line, signed Deontay Johnson, and drafted Xavier Legette. Huge improvement. This does not mean that Bryce Young is guaranteed to make the leap, but at least they are giving him a chance to fulfill the promise of what they saw in a number 1 overall pick. Bryce Young is my QB 25. That is even with the market. A very meh fantasy playoff schedule. At home versus the Cowboys in Week 15. At home versus the Cardinals for Week 16. And then on the road in Week 17 to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will talk running back. This is Dave Canales in March, not too long after he landed the job. This is him talking about what he wants Carolina's offensive identity to be.
Coming into the job, this was like a dream scenario for me to say, the defensive side is in good hands. How can I then just focus on building this offense the right way, starting it from the ground up, starting it inside out, and making sure that we can play a brand of football that we're proud of. And I think what I can bring in addition to the defensive side is this cohesive identity where we run the ball, we play great defense, and we run like crazy on special teams, and that becomes us. That becomes Panthers football, and that's what our fan base expects to see on TV or when they come into our stadium. They expect to see that brand week in and week out.
Let's follow that up with a 7-second clip of David Canales.
The intent of our offense is to run the ball, and we believe in that. We believe that that opens up everything we want to do.
Are we sensing a theme here? March 27th at the owners' meeting. This was before the draft. Here is Dave Canales talking about how Carolina's RB1 will be decided.
Yeah, I'm fired up about it. You know, I'm excited to see what Miles can do. I know Chuba got a lot more opportunities last year and saw the style, the toughness. That's what we're looking for, you know. And then really just like from there, it's about, you know, building the front the right way, getting the system so everyone's on the same page, and really demanding the attitude and style of runs. But I'm excited about our backfield.
You want to see one guy step forward, or do you count on using your guys?
Competition. See who wants it the most, right? See who's hungry, runs angry. And that'll be the person that gets the ball the most.
All right. This next clip is April 27th. Right after the draft, the Panthers had just selected running back Jonathon Brooks. And here's Dave Canales talking about him.
What does Jonathon do? What's his skill set that you think really fit well with what you like to do in the run game?
Yeah, versatility. First and foremost, you know, our system calls for a back that can be used, of course, just in a traditional way, hand it to him. Then how can we get this player in space, being able to get him in perimeter screens, check downs. We got a really cool empty package where we use the backs, flex them out to get matchups, things like that. You know, he's a bigger back. He's got range. There's so much that he brings from a versatility standpoint. That's probably the biggest thing that stood out. And then just vision, patience, contact balance, acceleration. Like, he's got it all. He's the best back in this class, and we were so fired up to just be able to bring him in and create that competition that Dan talked about.
Anything in his visit or any games that jumped out at you, and did the injury give you any pause?
For sure. You know, I think anytime you're dealing with an injury like that, we have to do our homework and we have to have the full workup and all that. And And we had great help with that information to say we feel like this is a guy who's on track, with this type of injury. And so that part aside, I think just looking at Jonathon, meeting with him in person, you feel the depth of character of this guy, a guy who's had to overcome. Here's a guy who went into Texas at 185 pounds as a running back, and worked his way into the guy that he is today, and so a guy that's overcome the challenges of playing behind two really, really good players at Texas. He was able to tell that story, bring it to life, and really with the humility and respect for those guys that he was there. He's like, I learned so much from them, and it was whether it was the most genuine answer, it was a great answer, to just hear him say that, and to tell a story like I've talked about before. So putting all those things, and then plus the ability, it's really cool to have him here.
We're going to hear Dave Canales talk about versatility a lot in these clips. He says it all the time. So very important to him. At the NFL Combine, Dave Canales said, I'm excited about proving to you how stubborn I can be with the running game. And we saw that last season when he was the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. We also saw Canales use short passes to Rachaad White as an extension of the running game when they were unable to get anything going on the ground. Carolina trading up to draft Jonathon Brooks 10 spots ahead of where he was projected to go shows you how much they wanted this guy. He is going to be a key piece of this offense where Dave Canales is excited about proving how stubborn he can be with the running game. But first, Jonathon Brooks needs to make a complete recovery from the ACL tear he suffered in November. Here is Dave Canales on June 12th talking about Jonathon Brooks' status.
Follow up on any guys you pretty sure won't be available right at the beginning of camp.
I think DJ Wanham's got a ways to go to just continue to progress, and Jonathon Brooks has a little bit of ways to go, so we'll kind of progress them into camp. Eku Leota, again, we expect him to be ready for camp, but again, guys that are coming in with soft tissue things, we just have to be smart about ramping them up as we go.
Progress them into camp, ramping them up. It doesn't sound super serious, right? Like expecting him as in Jonathon Brooks to miss the beginning of the season. I believe it's very likely that he's ready by week 1, but I do expect the Panthers to kind of ease him in. There's no need to rush him along or make him an immediate workhorse if there's any danger at all of Jonathon Brooks suffering a setback. I think we'll see him unleashed and fully taking over the RB1 job around week 5 or 6. And this will be a very lucrative role for fantasy. A lot of carries, a lot of targets in this Dave Canales offense. Jonathon Brooks is my running back 20. That is 2 spots ahead of consensus. Terrific pick for redraft, dynasty, best ball, all formats. You'll just want to make sure that you structure your running back room in a way that helps you survive the first 6 or so weeks of the season if the Panthers do end up easing Brooks in. Chuba Hubbard, running back 55 for me. That is 4 spots behind the market. He is likely to provide you with some usable weeks at the beginning of the season. So the only spots where I'm drafting him is if my team's structure is in need of that. I'm not expecting anything out of him in the fantasy playoffs, so I'm not exactly foaming at the mouth to draft him at his 14th round ADP. Miles Sanders, RB 80 for me. That is 2 spots ahead of consensus. Carolina wide receivers. The Panthers acquired Deontay Johnson during the offseason, and he is going to soak up so many targets in this offense. The question is how many touchdowns he and the Panthers will score this year. If he can get back to the 7 or 8 touchdowns he scored in 2020 and 2021, he will pay off his ADP in a big way. I like Deontay Johnson to go over 750.5 receiving yards on FanDuel. He cleared that number easily from 2020 to 2022 and then finished just under that number with 717 yards last year, playing in just 13 games. Carolina also brings in Xavier Legette, who they drafted at the end of the first round. He picked up a hamstring injury in OTAs, and this is what Dave Canales had to say about that.
Xavier's hamstring ended up being a little more involved than initially thought.
No, not really. It's just any hamstring. So, like, again, we're looking at the time really getting shorter and shorter to when we go to camp. So we just really can't afford to say, well, it's good enough. I think if we're playing a game this week, he's practicing and we're getting ready to go. But right now, this is not the time to test that, you know. So I think being cautious on that side, looking towards training camp is the right thing to do.
Doesn't seem like much cause for concern. Xavier Legette had a very weird prospect profile, including a late breakout age that's been scaring people off. Brett Coleman posted a great thread on Twitter back in March that highlighted some of the reasoning behind this odd journey for Legette. Started out as a receiver in high school, but the coaching staff converted him into a mobile quarterback. Then he gray shirts at South Carolina as a receiver. His father passes away in 2019, just 4 years after his mother passed. Then COVID hits after his freshman year. Coaching change after his sophomore year. Motorcycle accident in his junior year. So many obstacles for this young man, but he keeps battling through it, catches 71 passes his senior year for 1,255 yards and 7 touchdowns, then becomes a first-round pick in the NFL draft. There's a lot to like about Xavier Legette, both on and off the field. There's also a ton of opportunity for him in this offense, so I am in on him this year. Deontay Johnson, my wide receiver 43, that is one spot ahead of the market. Xavier Legette, wide receiver 63, 3 spots ahead of consensus. And then Adam Thielen, wide receiver 85 for me, that is 13 spots behind the market. He's about to turn 34 years old. He dropped off a cliff at the end of last season after a hot start. Adam Thielen is who mothers are picturing when they tell their kids, we have Deontay Johnson at home. Tight end. Here is Dave Canales on his tight end friendly offense.
This offense is perfect for a tight end. Kind of describe what that means to you.
Yeah, so I think it's tight end friendly. We don't ask our tight ends to really be dominant blockers at the point of attack on runs a lot. We will ask them at times, but within our system, we use their skill sets, and we're looking for tight ends with versatility. We're not necessarily looking for that big 270-pound mauler type of tight end, although those guys are awesome and they have a place in this league. But if you have a smaller guy who's more of a route runner and he's a little bit crafty, then at the run, you can slide him back and block a defensive end on the backside. You can send him up away from a defensive end, in or out, depending on where his alignment is. And so that allows him to get better matchups in blocking. Linebackers, safeties, sometimes corners, that then becomes our advantage. So that part of it's really friendly for the tight ends. And then just within the scheme, because we throw a lot of play actions, the tight ends are involved in different ways. Just getting them in the flat, dragging them underneath the linebackers. The ball finds those guys a lot because we ask them to block, and then all of a sudden they're bluffing the linebacker, and they show up on the other side. Tommy had a great example of that today. We're pulling to one side. He ends up all the way on the other side of the defense because they have to fit their gaps. So I think that's probably what they're talking about, and we love using our tight ends that way, sometimes 3 tight ends, in different sets.
Guess who is that big 270-pound mauler type of tight end who they're not necessarily looking for? Yes, it is Ian Thomas. One more clip. This is April 25th, right after the Panthers drafted tight end J.T. Sanders, a.k.a. Jatavian Sanders.
And I wanted your take on the tight end Sanders, and then I had one more for Dan, please.
Yeah, versatility, right, you guys? I sound like a broken record, but it's really what we're looking for, for our system and the things that JT, as he goes by, the things that he showed on film, just being able to use him as a receiver, use him in the run game in creative ways, he's definitely not the traditional inline type of tight end. He's a guy that can do a lot of different things. He's made some dynamic plays with the ball in his hand, and he's really strong at the catch. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we saw in him is just the contested catch part. He's got massive hands, and he really does attack the ball. And anymore in this league, tight ends to really get that separation in man-to-man, it's pretty hard. Most of them are around the same speed except for a few guys. So since they're going to be covered, the contested catch is big, and that's where he really separated himself from the rest of the guys. And we just saw a great opportunity. Had all night to sleep on it, woke up in the morning and talked through some stuff, and we're so excited to make that decision.
All right, there's that versatility word again. I don't know if I love contested catches being the biggest positive that Canales sees in JT Sanders. We saw a bunch of tight ends come into the league last year and be productive in their rookie seasons, but that is not the norm. Sanders does not fit that type of profile to me. I think I'd rather take a flyer on Tommy Tremble, or better yet, just skip this entire tight end room. Tommy Tremble is my tight end 35. That is 8 spots ahead of the market. JT Sanders, tight end 37 for me. That is 7 spots behind consensus. The New Orleans Saints. Let's start out with Dennis Allen on the Saints offense needing to be more efficient in the red zone.
I know it's way too early, but as far as red zone efficiency, are you confident that that's going to go up?
Yeah, well, look, you're right. It's way too early to really have a clear picture of, what that's going to look like. We just really finished the second day of working, down there in the red zone. I do know this. I do know that it's an area that we have to improve in. We have to be better in that area. And I think part of being better in that area is being able to run the ball more effectively. And I do like some of the things that I've seen out here in terms of what I think we can do, when we really start practicing football, what I think we can do in the run game.
Derek Carr has historically been an awful quarterback in the red zone. Just absolutely stinky. We'll see if new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak has any good Carr ideas, or maybe the Saints just run the hell out of the ball in the red zone. There are a bunch of reports about how much they've been utilizing Taysom Hill and how much they plan to use him in the offense this season. We could see a lot of Taysom's package down near the goal line. Derek Carr is my QB 28. That is even with the market. The Saints have an okay playoff schedule for fantasy. Week 15 at home versus the Commanders, at Green Bay in Week 16, then back home to face the Raiders in Week 17. Let's talk running backs. Here is Dennis Allen on Kendre Miller back in May.
Well, what I see from him is more consistency. And that's probably a general theme with most of these young guys. I've seen burst and explosiveness. I've seen, the ability to make people miss. I've seen good vision, one-cut ability, and yet I want to see it more often. I want to see that speed more often. I want to see that intensity more often. And so I think that's where we're at with the young player.
All right, some good traits that Dennis Allen sees in Kendre Miller. He just wants to see it more often. Dennis Allen on Jamal Williams now in the same press conference.
He was a 1,000-yard rusher in Detroit. Didn't have the year maybe he wanted last year. What do you kind of think attributed to maybe his individual decline?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think probably we probably didn't do as good a job of utilizing him as maybe we could have. And yet, look, I think our focus is how do we incorporate him into what we're doing now, and how do we utilize him this year, try to get him involved in the offense, both from a run game perspective and a passing game perspective. I think there's a lot of things that he can do. I mean, I think he's a tough downhill, point of attack runner, and I think we got to put him in those situations to let him have success doing that. And so, and look, I think part of it is I think we've got to do a better job, up front. I don't think overall we ran the ball nearly as well as we needed to last year, and so, that's an us thing. And we've got to get better at that, and I think that's been a point of emphasis for us.
Man, the Saints getting Jamal Williams more involved in the offense this year does not seem like a recipe for success. Go back and look at Jamal Williams' efficiency numbers last season. Very bad. Speaking of bad efficiency, the 87 targets Alvin Kamara saw last season was second most for a running back, but his efficiency numbers were ugly. Fourth worst in rushing yards above expectation, ranked 107th in EPA. Oof. There does not seem to be much tread left on those tires. He is turning 29 years old this month, and Kamara has touched the ball 1,946 times in his NFL career. Then we have a brand new offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak, so we can't expect the tendencies and workload and everything like that from last season to necessarily carry over to this year. In fact, Kendre Miller's skill set fits Kubiak's system quite well. I'm also very concerned about Taysom Hill and others seeing significant work near the goal line. I'm most concerned about this offensive line, though. It is bad, and from what Dennis Allen has said, it sounds like their stud right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, may not be able to play this season due to a degenerative knee condition. If their draft pick Fuaga doesn't pan out at left tackle, this could get nasty in a real hurry for the run game and this entire offense. So, yeah, I'm pretty bearish on Alvin Kamara, which may turn out to make me look dumb. We will see. Kamara is my RB24. That is 6 spots after the market. I'd give him a small bump in full PPR leagues. Kendre Miller, running back 44 for me. That is 1 spot after consensus. Jamal Williams, RB81, 3 spots after the market. Wide receiver. Here is Dennis Allen on Chris Olave.
Brought in so many receivers, but how much can this pass, how much can you get out of a guy maybe like Chris Olave, who still is young and has potential to grow? What would you do for him if you take?
Well, I think our expectation is that we can get a lot more out of him. I still think we can still be better in the contested catch situation. I still think there's a lot of run after catch situations that we can improve on. Just that consistency, play in and play out. I think there's a lot of things that he can improve on, and quite frankly, those are our expectations. Because we feel like he's got a chance to be, a really, really good receiver in our league. And so that's the standard that we're going to hold him at. And I think that's the standard that he's going to hold himself accountable to.
Need some improvement out of second-round fantasy draft pick Chris Olave, according to Dennis Allen. I mean, I bash the guy a lot. I understand the need for improvement and getting better and better. I like to pick on him. Speaking of picking on people, here's Dennis Allen on A.T. Perry.
To happen for a guy like A.T. Perry, what did you kind of want to see him work on this offseason to maybe put himself in position to?
Everything. I mean, he's coming off his rookie year. There's a ton of stuff he's got to, improve on. And so, again, I don't want him thinking about, well, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do. Like, just come to work every day and focus on the things that you're being coached to do, and do it to the very best of your ability every single day. And if you do that, then the jump that we're all talking about will naturally occur.
Imagine you go into your boss's office at work for a performance review, and they tell you, you got to work on everything. That's so rough, man. I want to play you one more clip. And this is Dennis Allen on A.T. Perry 1 week after that previous clip.
Perry, what are you seeing from what you guys wanted to see from his growth?
Yeah, look, I mean, he's still got a long way to go. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a guy that's got talent, has shown signs of being a playmaker, and has shown signs of inconsistency. And so I think that's the challenge with all young players, is how do you get them to, that's what really the development really is. The development is the consistency with which you have to, perform on a day in and day out basis. And I think that's, that's the challenge that we're faced with not only AT, but a lot of these young guys.
AT buried. Chris Olave is my wide receiver 12. That is one spot behind the market. Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 49 for me. That is 3 spots ahead of consensus. This guy is not a flash in the pan. He is legit, and he will be on the field in a full-time role. I am packing my bags with Rashid Shaheed. Rookie Bub Means is my wide receiver 100. That is 37 spots ahead of the market. Really nice flyer here who's going undrafted in most best ball drafts. Big play receiver, 6'1", 212 pounds, ran a 4.43 40. He also ranked second in contested catch rate among the 2024 wide receiver draft class. The wide receiver 3 spot for the Saints is wide the hell open. So I will roll the dice on the mystery box here. A.T. Perry is my wide receiver 110, which is 12 spots behind consensus. Saints tight end Juwan Johnson had foot surgery in June. The Saints are hoping he'll be available by week 1, but there's no guarantee. I will take him here and there at the end of best ball drafts, but there are a lot of other tight ends that I would rather take a shot on. Juwan Johnson is my tight end 27. That is 1 spot before the market. And then Taysom Hill is not labeled as a tight end on Underdog, but he is on at least one other site. I would probably have him ranked around tight end 19 or 20. He is a real weapon in the red zone, and they may use him a lot down there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic 2023 season with Dave Canales as his offensive coordinator. Over 4,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and just 10 interceptions. but Canales is in Carolina now. So should we expect Baker Mayfield to turn into a pumpkin in 2024? I would not count on it. New offensive coordinator Liam Cohen was Baker Mayfield's pass game coordinator in 2022 when Baker was traded from the Panthers to the Rams. So they have a bit of a connection established already. And I have to say, Cohen is very impressive in his press conferences. This guy has a clear vision for his offense. You can tell that it's not going to be some rigid paint by numbers operation telegraphed by a stubborn OC. I believe we'll see some real creativity from Cohen, and we'll see him put Baker Mayfield and the Bucs playmakers in positions to win. Tampa's fantasy playoff schedule goes week 15 at the Chargers, on the road again, like Willie Nelson in week 16 to play the Cowboys, then hosting the Panthers in week 17. That last one is very nice. I like Baker Mayfield, QB 23 for me. One spot behind the market, but I am aiming to get my fair share of him in best ball drafts. We have got to talk about the Bucs backfield. After Rachaad White had a heavy workload as a rusher and receiver last season, Todd Bowles was asked about that in February.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to have another back in here to take some more weight off of him. I think if you carry the ball that much, injuries are bound to happen. We can take some of the load off him. With Chase being hurt a little bit last year and a couple guys just being young, we didn't have that much to go off of. But he carried it well and he did a heck of a job. He's young and I think he can do it. But we always want to take the pressure off him if we can.
After what Baker did.
To take some of the weight off. Keep that in mind as we watch this next clip on the evolution of Rachaad White in 2023.
I thought Rachaad matured because he really got a hold of the offense and understood what we were expecting of him in that aspect. So he started playing faster because he was playing smarter. He knew where the cutback lanes were going to be before they opened up. Early in the season, he was waiting to see, and it was slowing him down. And he probably missed a few holes. In the passing game, he's always been an asset. We probably hadn't used him as much, but if you can get him in open space, he's a very good route runner. He's very elusive out in the open field, and he has outstanding hands, and he really worked on his pass blocking and became that way, so he became a very good all-around football player, and there's not too many of them in the league like that right now.
Not too many of them in the league like that right now. Todd Bowles does not bullshit around. He says what he believes. We may not think Rachaad White is a rare talent in the NFL, but Todd Bowles does, and that is important for fantasy. Here's Todd Bowles on Bucky Irving back on May 10th.
A back that complements your starting running back. What does Bucky bring? What do you like about what he brings?
He can stick his foot in the ground and run the ball. More importantly, he can make the first guy miss more often than not. And, that's a rare trait to have in this ball game, especially when, so many guys can tackle well and get to the ball real fast. To make a guy miss, the first guy miss, and potentially have big playability is something that we didn't have a lot of last year.
Big playability is something that we didn't have a lot of last year. Oof. Now we will hear from offensive coordinator Liam Cohen on Bucky Irving and Rachaad White.
Speaking of running game, Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
Talk about what you like about his skill set.
Yeah, Bucky's he's pretty dynamic, where he gives us the ability in the run and pass game, right? The screen game, and then also from a special team standpoint and some of the return game as well. But Bucky's a guy that I'm actually pretty close with, the OC out at Oregon, Will, and He told me he was his favorite player that he's ever coached, and somebody that's just, team first, will do anything and everything he's asked to do. From Chicago, tough kid, loved him when he came up on his visit. Just the type of kid that I think will fit in really well in this building. And the nice thing I like about Bucky is he gets to his top speeds early. Like when he accepts the handoff, he bursts and accelerates through the hole and can make people miss in space.
Along those lines, is that something that you're kind of wanting to see Rashad White do a little bit more of? He's known as to be a patient runner, sometimes too patient perhaps.
I mean, he has taken every detail that we've coached throughout this offseason and applied it. That is something that we've worked on and that we've been communicating to him and really to all the backs is just we are fast to and fast through. And we receive the handoff. We want to be shot out of a cannon. With obviously having vision and patience goes along with it. That's not something I need to really coach. But he has been fantastic when it comes to the tracks, his responsibility, the landmark, and being shot out of a cannon in some of the run game that we have done so far in this phase.
Big emphasis on the running backs being fast to and fast through the hole. Here's Todd Bowles on June 14th talking about Bucky Irving's role.
Do you have an idea how Bucky and Rashad will work together in terms of like, is it going to be kind of a 1A, 1B? Is one of the third down back? Is it just how much Bucky can handle? What is it?
Still early right now. We got to get in pads. It's still more to determine and get in pads and see who can do what as far as Bucky's concerned. Chase is involved in that, and there's a bunch of other backs involved in that. But he's a talented guy. He's very smart. He's here early every day, and just look forward to seeing what he can do so we know where we can use him at.
He keeps mentioning Chase Edmonds. People are really hyping up Bucky Irving in a big way, and he is very impressive with the ball in his hands. He was fast to and through the hole in college, but I want to present the bear case for him, and it is a big, violent bear. It's that bear that ate a bag of cocaine and went on a rampage. First of all, Todd Bowles likes big running backs. Bucky Irving is now listed at 195 pounds. He was 190 in college. The most carries a sub 200-pound running back has seen in Todd Bowles' 6 years as an NFL head coach is 3 carries. And that was with 5 different offensive coordinators, so it wasn't just an OC thing. Second point, and most important, Irving's 23.6 pass blocking grade at Oregon last year, which placed him in the 11th percentile of running backs. Truly awful. There aren't many coaches who will tolerate a pass protection liability in their backfield. And Todd Bowles and Liam Cohen, who comes from the Sean McVay tree, definitely do not fall into this category. And I expect the Bucs to run a lot of 11 personnel where pass blocking ability is even more important because you don't have the extra tight end blocker that you might have in 12 personnel or the fullback in 21 personnel. If they put Bucky Irving out there to pass block, 20 seconds later, they'll be drawing a chalk outline of Baker Mayfield. When Bucky Irving is on the field, that will be a tell for defenses that he's either taking a handoff or running a route. That puts your offense at a disadvantage. We will not see him in any sort of a full-time role. That is my belief. The best that we can hope for is about 8 to 10 touches a game. I believe that is his ceiling. Rashad White is my running back 14. That is one spot ahead of the market. I know his efficiency numbers tell a frightening bedtime story, but this is an improved offensive line in Tampa. White did look much better in the second half of 2023, and he's going to see a ton of volume again. The Bucs passing game will have this offense in the red zone quite often, and they are not going to be handing the ball off to 195-pound Bucky Irving down there. Bucky Irving is my RB 59. That is 5 spots behind the market. Wide receiver, here is OC Liam Cohen at his introductory press conference discussing how he wants to utilize Mike Evans.
Different wide receiver than Mike Evans.
Totally.
But, still, he's a guy that, when you're playing teams, they're keying in on him, and that can make every rep really hard.
Right.
So just, I guess, how is your experience having to kind of help design solutions to be able to still get the ball in his hands? How can that help potentially with Mike Evans?
That's a great question. That's something that was asked a lot, and we had to do in LA a ton because we knew that, that offense ran through Coop. And things have changed a little bit there, but he's gotten a little bit more help. But things ran through him, and we had to be creative, right? With whether it was by formation, alignment, where we would put him, how we would end up in the final formation. Just by 3 different formations, double Dixie and Daffy, we just moved the F in 3 different positions. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to be able to move him around by formation, but also motion. Do we start him in the backfield? Do we bring him in the backfield and now try to shuffle him out and be able to get him matched up on a will or a nickel or a backer or a down safety? Mike obviously being the size that he is and his ability to be able to track the football down the field, but also his ability to get in and out of cuts at that size, man, to be able to put him inside a little bit more and to be able to run some of those option routes and choice routes on the inside, man, I think that's a winning edge and something that we'd like to be able to utilize.
Here is Todd Bowles on the team's plan to play Chris Godwin more in the slot this season.
Godwin played the majority of snaps outside. And can you talk about the reason for that, what the thinking behind it was, and now Liam Cohen wants to move him back inside, and also the purpose of that?
Well, he's an inside guy by nature. He can play outside, but he can make a living inside doing a bunch of things for us, and we plan to let him do a lot of things that he does best. He's coming off the injury last year, so I don't know if he was at full tilt inside or outside, but he looks a lot quicker, a lot lighter, and he's healthier now, and he's eager to learn and get the offense down, so we're just excited to have him out on the field.
Todd Bowles has an 80% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak, so definitely buying this, especially in light of the fact that Liam Cohen called Chris Godwin really dynamic on the inside at his introductory presser, where he said he envisions Godwin more on the inside, playing that F position that ultimately Cooper Kupp played. After playing in the slot at clips of 51%, 53%, and 60% his first 3 seasons, Godwin played just 32% of his 2023 snaps in the slot. I expect Godwin to see a huge increase in inside alignments this year. Here is Liam Cohen again on May 6th on rookie Jalen McMillan.
What do you like about Jalen McMillan?
Yeah, I love J-Mac. He's a true route runner. He's a guy that's wired to separate, has the ability to work the defense at all 3 levels. He's can run the option routes, the choice routes, but also has enough long speed to get down the field vertically. He's very quarterback friendly with the way that he gets out of his breaks. He's a hands catcher, and he played in a system and with a group of guys that was extremely competitive, and he has that competitive nature to be able to come in here and compete for early playing time.
And then here's Todd Bowles on June 11th on Jalen McMillan.
He's had a nice couple weeks. He can catch the ball. We know that. He's a good route runner. He's a competitor, and he's very intelligent. That impressed me the most. Can't wait to see him in pads. Anytime you can get another ball catcher and a route running intelligent receiver, he fits in well no matter where we put him at. We got a couple guys behind him. Obviously, Trey and Rock and the rest of the guys can play as well, but he fits in well with Chris and Mike. He had a lot of versatility in college. He played in slot, he played Z, he played X. He's a very intelligent player, so that gives us some advantages.
This is very bullish for Jalen McMillan. Bowles classifies the non-Mike Evans, non-Chris Godwin receivers as being behind McMillan. And with Chris Godwin in line to see a huge spike in slot snaps, McMillan's ability to play on the outside is huge for the Bucs offense. Tampa ranked 7th in 3 receiver sets last season. They ran 11 personnel 72.6% of the time. They ranked 5th in 2022 at 72.1% rate with a different offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator for the Rams in 2022, and they led the league in 11 personnel at a 90.3% clip. We are going to see so many 3 receiver sets in Tampa this year, which is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on Jalen McMillan. Mike Evans is my wide receiver 18. That is 1 spot behind consensus. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 33 for me. That is 3 spots ahead of the market. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver 70, which is 12 spots ahead of consensus. And then Sterling Shepard, wide receiver 107, 57 spots ahead of the market. Tight end, Cade Otton is my tight end 23. That is 2 spots behind the market. He played at least 90% of offensive snaps in every game last year. So he locked that position down, but he only averaged 3.9 targets and 26.8 receiving yards per game. He is not consistent enough for redraft, and he doesn't have enough upside for best ball. So I am out on Cade Otton. That finishes off the NFC South. I hope this edified your fantasy football soul. I hope you feel more prepared for your drafts. And I really hope that you'll smash that like and subscribe button. One of Odin's messengers appeared to me in a dream last night and told me that the only way I will get into Valhalla is if everyone that listened to this episode subscribes. And I am really trying to get into Valhalla, y'all. I hear they have a super sick Top Golf there. Check us out on Twitter at CoachSpeakIndex. Y'all have a good one. I'll see you here next time. Sarah, take us out.